Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's International Business Affairs Forum. We have great speakers today, and I'm excited to hear their insight on medium and heavy-duty fleet programs that will impact commercial operations and efforts moving forward to promote EV manufacturing and infrastructure. I want to give a special thanks to the California Air Resources Board and the North American Development Bank for joining us today. We appreciate your ongoing partnership and work developing projects and initiatives that have been key to our region and have helped us become a model for prosperity and globalized economy. CARB has been a leader in advancing programs and efforts to fight climate change across the state and protecting our community from harmful effects of air pollution. These efforts include a work plan in partnership with the state of Baja to improve air quality in the border region and developing state implementation plans in the US and priorities in Mexico. In addition, the NAD Bank played a vital role in our border region by supporting the development and implementation of infrastructure projects and efforts that preserve, protect, or enhance the environment to ensure our binational community's well-being and life quality. To get us started with today's conversation, I'd like to introduce Ernesto Bravo, President of West Division at TEMCA and Chair of the Chamber's International Business Affairs Forum. Ernesto, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning, everyone. As the largest nonprofit advocate for the San Diego business community, the Chamber's mission is to make this region the best place to live and work. California has been the global leader in addressing the climate crisis, moving towards a more reliable, affordable, and diverse water supply, as well as more renewable and cost-competitive energy resources. The state's Air Resources Board, CARB, has acquired a scoping plan to shift away from fossil fuels and rely more on renewable energy sources, aiming for an 80% reduction of greenhouse gases below 1990 levels by 2030. Having an estimated cost of $18 billion in 2035, this plan includes measures to mandate zero emissions vehicles and medium and heavy duty fleets, encourage the use of renewable biofuels, and increase investments in technology to capture carbon and remove it from the atmosphere. San Diego is home to California's largest commercial land port of entry with an estimated 7,000 to 9,000 crossings each day, about half northbound and half southbound. Our region has a unique trucking community that travels to the maritime ports of the Los Angeles area and works closely with large manufacturers located south of the border in Baja California. Furthermore, trade with Mexico directly supports over 5 million US jobs and over 565,000 jobs in California. This trade has been integral to California's success as the fifth largest economy in the world. In order for this industry to transition to cleaner technologies, proper guidance is needed to avoid economic losses in a low carbon future. A couple of housekeeping instructions. I want to ask all attendees to please type your questions in the chat or Q&A box, and we will get to the Q&A at the end of the session. I'm honored to welcome today's guest speakers. Bill Robertson is a heavy-duty technology advisor at the California Air Resources Board, working across incentives, regulatory development, and emissions measurement. Bill has been with CARB for 17 years, with the first decade spent directly evaluating emissions technology and alternative fuels in CARB's heavy-duty vehicle emissions test facility. Also joining us, Jesse Hereford, who serves as the Director of Public Affairs at the North American Development Bank, where he oversees all departmental functions, recommends policy direction and strategy, manages U.S. federal legislative affairs, and acts as an agency spokesperson. During his time at NAD Bank, Jesse has successfully overseen the U.S. portion of NAD Bank's capital increase, which was included in the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, and an annual increase in U.S. federal funding for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Border Water Infrastructure Program. We are pleased to welcome both of you. To get us started, I'll turn it over to Bill. Bill, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about some of the programs we have going on at the California Air Resources Board and how those affect trucking and by extension, some of your members here. For those of you that may not be as familiar with CARB, We have a long history in looking at regional air quality issues like ozone and particulate material. We've been taking a lot finer spatial look at how air quality issues affect local exposure around communities and very individual kind of exposure. And then, of course, CARB is also the lead agency for global climate change mitigation and greenhouse gas reduction for state policies. As was mentioned, there are quite a number of very aggressive air quality and climate goals that are statutory and regulatory targets for us going forward. And looking at like 2045, completely decarbonizing our economy and reaching carbon neutrality, and at that same kind of time frame, looking at rolling over the heavy duty trucking fleet to zero emissions, along with a number of intermediate goals along the way. As we look at this wide variety of targets, we have a mobile source strategy document that we continually update, and that's looking at how the sector that includes cars and trucks and off-road equipment contributes to both greenhouse gas and these criteria emissions like diesel PM and NOx. And looking at the amount of reduction that we're up against, these are 2/3, 3/4, 4/5 kinds of reduction. So it's not really marginal at the edges kind of changes, but we really have to be looking at what are transformational changes we can make to the technologies we use and the way we go about accomplishing these tasks of moving people and goods. Our governor has exhibited a lot of leadership in this space. One of his actions has been this executive order that sets forth timelines for various sectors achieving zero emissions, but it also looks at promoting the development of infrastructure and the technologies for charging these vehicles and other supportive actions. It also looks at how are we using the best type of transportation to accomplish each of these tasks, and do folks have options, clean mobility options to get around? Is it so it's not just looking at the technologies in vehicles, but it's also looking at how we use them and how we deploy them in our society. To see such a large transformation, we realize we really need to be investing up front and getting the technologies ready that can create this kind of change. And so we've been doing a lot of investment in one-off, first of kinds of demonstrations of technology, as well as trying to get pilots of several or a fleet amount of these technologies out into the marketplace, and then supporting that early commercialization and supply chain development. So in the governor's budget, he had $6 billion for ZEV projects, and we're responsible for about $2 billion of those projects. And as we're looking at this, it's not just developing technologies, it's also looking at how to make sure that as we craft these programs, there's everyone has access to the benefits of these technologies. And so equity is a big piece of our program development lens. Well, we're not the only ones working in the zero emission space. There's 17 states that have our light duty programs. There's 5 states and growing that are following our heavy duty programs. But with trucking especially, it's really important to get federal leadership on this topic, because the heavy trucks are inherently interstate commerce related. In this forum, we're very sensitive to the cross border with Mexico piece of it. These trucks move around. It's really important to take a very wide range view when looking at solutions in this space. But it's good to see a lot of different jurisdictions working in this same direction. So I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about 3 regs that we have coming up, but I wanted to highlight that these are in the context of these economy-wide actions. Our scoping plan is looking at how working in natural lands and stationary sources and mobile sources and all these different pieces of our economy, where the opportunities are for reducing greenhouse gases. Mobile source is just one sector there. And then we have prepare these state implementation plans to demonstrate to EPA how we're going to achieve the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for the various criteria pollutants. And I already mentioned the mobile source strategy that's trying to show how the mobile source sector knits those two together. But there's also a number of efforts we've already undertaken in the zero emission space. We have a rule on the books that's turning over our urban bus fleet to zero emissions. There's another rule on the books that's getting ready to turn over the airport shuttles. And of course, we've been working in the car space for quite a number of years, with the Advanced Clean Cars 2 being the most recent effort in that area. But we're also, looking at tailpipe things with, the truck and bus rule has been updating the fleet to 2010 SCR systems or newer, and that matures at the end of the year here. I'm going to speak a little more on the heavy duty inspection maintenance program that's just starting up. And then we've been looking at tailpipe standards for trucks and also looking how those omnibus standards can be applied in the off-road space as well. And I mentioned that our incentive work. So there's a lot of sort of preparation that's been going on as we move into these rules that I'm going to talk about here. So looking at the existing trucks, there's this, we have a legislative mandate to develop a program to establish a uniform, state of good repair among the trucks that are currently on the road. And in developing this program, we put a lot of time into trying to make sure the program stays out of the way of the majority of trucks that are compliant, that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, sort of thing. But it also is intended to identify and accelerate the repairs of trucks that need that repair. And so we lean pretty hard on the onboard diagnostic systems that are in the trucks, the check engine light functionality that's embedded in these trucks, and looked at a range of ways to report that information back to be able to demonstrate compliance. So there's also an arm of this program where we're doing high emitter screening using instrumentation that can make measurements of the exhaust plume as a truck drives by, sort of thing. So there's a little bit of belt and suspenders on this. This program is going to start in January of next year, and that's initially going to be registering fleets and vehicles and getting into the program, and then later that year they'll start doing some enforcement, and then January the following year in 2024 will be the start of actually reporting this information on the trucks and getting the program fully up and running. So the next rule I want to talk about, this is a pair of rules I'm going to talk about here. The Advanced Clean Trucks is looking at the supply of zero emission vehicles. And so it's a rule that faces the vehicle manufacturer, the vehicle OEMs, and it requires them to sell an increasing fraction of zero emission trucks in California. And the various ways they can trade credits between classes. So if they see that they have a good opportunity in one particular type of vehicle, they can focus on that and cover the other categories they also sell. But it does require that Class 8, the production of Class 8 zero-emission tractors, because we know we need those for the drayage operations, for the short-haul operations that are so embedded in our communities. And so there's a requirement that ACT deficits that are generated by selling internal combustion tractors have to be offset by zero-emission Class 7-8 tractors. So this rule is paired with a rule that we're taking to the board in October that's supposed to be implemented in the same kind of time frame, which is the advanced clean fleets. And this one is looking at the demand side. And so, you know, it's fine to require the vehicle manufacturers to sell them, but then we're also trying to pair this with a demand piece where various fleets are then purchasing these trucks, and it's intended to be roughly similar order of magnitude between the two, but you know, not required to be the exact same number. There's three big pieces to this. One is the drayage, and so that is on a timeline to roll over to 100% zero emission by 2035. And then there's a public fleets category, which requires that in a year that they purchase vehicles, a certain number of those vehicles need to be zero emission. If they're not purchasing vehicles, then they don't have an obligation that year, sort of piece. So that's a percent of purchase kind of approach. And then the third category is this priority and federal fleets. So for fleets of 50 or more trucks, or more than $50 million of revenue, there's a couple of compliance pathways that can be chosen. One is to when a vehicle reaches end of its useful life, that it's retired and replaced with a zero emission vehicle. The other compliance pathway is a percentage of the fleet schedule, and there's a schedule for 3 different sectors of vehicles. But then it's just a by this date, have this percent of your fleet be zero emissions kind of schedule. The Advanced Clean Fleets rule also has a sunset milestone for end of combustion vehicle sales, and that's set at 2040. So when you roll these up, what does it look like on the mix of powertrains present in the in-use fleet in California? And so this chart here shows our projection for the Advanced Clean Fleets purchase requirement for everything from you know, like F-250 heavy pickups and vans all the way up to the Class 8 trucks. So you see the gasoline there coming in from those lighter classes, as well as the significant diesel in our current fleet, and then the zero emission vehicles growing in over time. And then the black dotted line through the middle of the green zero emission there is the amount we would expect from the Advanced Clean Trucks sales mandate. So you can see the Advanced Clean Fleets rule is exceeding that by a certain amount going forward. So we're expecting, you know, quite a change in powertrains. And it's a very exciting time to be involved in these policies, trying to get all of the pieces put together of infrastructure and financing and education and workforce readiness, and all the pieces it takes to do such a large transformation of how we do business. And so as my last slide is just a number of links to these various programs where you can find a lot more detailed information. Thank you. Are you on mute, Ernesto?
Ernesto, you're on mute. Let me change that setting. Thank you. All right, you're good
Thank
to
you.
go.
Thank you, Kimana. Yeah, I wasn't allowed to unmute, so appreciate that. Bill, thank you very much. That was a great information. I think a great summary of a topic that is very, very interesting to a large portion of I think the members of the chamber and certainly of the trade industry groups and along the border. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll take just a reminder for everyone. We will take questions at the end. And so now we're going to turn it over to Director Hereford for an overview of the efforts moving into financing for EV manufacturing of commercial trucks.
Thank you, Ernesto. Appreciate that. And I have a presentation. I know Jimena is going to pop that up. So in my presentation, I thought I would just give kind of an overview of the bank quickly, highlight some of the projects we're doing, and then some of the sectors that we're able to finance so that everybody has kind of a better understanding of who we are, what we've done, and how we can move into the financing space for manufacturing of clean vehicles. Next slide, please. So we were established in 1994. Our mandate is to develop and finance environmental infrastructure along the U.S.-Mexico border. We can finance projects 62 miles into the U.S. or 186 miles into Mexico. We provide loans and grants for the implementation of those projects, and we help with technical assistance grants to get the project to construction. We're owned and operated in equal parts by the U.S. and Mexican federal governments. We're headquartered in San Antonio, and we also have an office in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. And then there you see our ratings by Moody's and Fitch. Next slide, please. To date, here's what we've done. We've financed 288 projects since we opened in 1994. And you can see we've done 26 projects in California and 35 projects in Baja California. And total investment is $10.2 billion. That's not all the bank's financing. We've done probably about a third of that. 3.4 comes from the bank, and the remainder comes from leveraging the funding that we give with public and private sector project sponsors. Next slide, please. So this is really where I wanted to spend a little bit of time. In San Diego and Tijuana, we're really known for helping to try to alleviate transboundary flows with the Tijuana River. The bank was founded on water and waste management. Those are our core sectors, and that's who we were when we started. We continue to work in those sectors. However, now we also focus on air quality, clean energy, sustainable cities, sustainable production, including green manufacturing and products. And we've had a lot of conversations with EV commercial truck manufacturers. And so kind of the process, the way that it's worked is they've approached us to help them with lines of credit, which we've done in Mexico. We have lines of credit for cleaner emission buses that we had done in the past. And now those EV truck manufacturers are working to try to fill their orders and to figure out how much of those orders would be driven towards the border, which is where we would be able to finance. And then related to air quality, we're also very involved with Otay Mesa East, the new port of entry. And if you look at the project types in green, those are our new project types that were approved in December. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank Jerry and the chamber. They were extremely supportive of the bank's capital increase that was in USMCA, as Ernesto, when he read my bio, in the implementation law. And as a result of that capital increase, we're able to move into some of these new sectors, and all of them fight climate change, focus on mitigation and adaptation. Next slide, please. So our program's very simple. We have loans that are competitive, fixed or floating with terms up to 30 years. We administer grants. That first bullet in the grants, EPA funded Border Environmental Infrastructure Fund. A lot of those funds have gone to Tijuana. We also have a community assistance program, and we administer EPA's Border 2025. And then the technical assistance, we use it to develop the projects, to get them to the point of construction, whether that be, studies, final engineering, final design, environmental studies, whatever's needed to get to move the project to shovel ready. And then we also do some capacity building with water utilities on both sides of the border. Next slide, please. Here's the 26 projects we've done in California, $438 million total contracted. And you'll see the majority are water, wastewater, even on the California side. But what I really wanted to highlight on this slide was solar and wind. If you look on the chart on the left there, the Imperial Irrigation District, that $130 million, the majority of that was for solar, and then Ocotillo, the 110 was a big wind farm. So we're very, very involved in helping the state produce renewable energy so they can meet their climate goals. Next slide, please. This just again shows kind of the same information before, but laid out in a map, and you can see where our projects are located in Southern California. Next slide, please. Here's what we've done in clean energy, and I thought that this was important as we talked about decarbonization and tying it to the EV trucks. But again, this is more general, and then we would have to get more focused on with truck manufacturers. But to date, we financed 39 clean energy projects, 22 in the US, 17 in Mexico, $1.7 billion in loans, and pretty evenly split, $913 million on the US side. And then you can go to the next slide, that's fine. This is something we're very, very proud of. This is the first transboundary energy generation wind farm. This was Innova's in Sempra's. So the phase one, which we helped finance almost $40 million to build the wind farm and the transmission lines to then sell to the off-taker, which is SDG&E, and being used in San Diego County. Very, very innovative. No other project is like this one, but that's why I wanted to highlight it. So even though the energy is being produced in Baja, it's being consumed in San Diego. Next slide, please. Here's an energy storage project that we did in Palm Springs. It's 4.73 million, but it was our first foray into battery storage, which leads me to the next slide, please. This slide, and Jerry was nice enough and the chamber to help us promote this when we approved it in December. But we signed a deal with a local San Diego company for $78.2 million. And they have 9 sites across the county that I think it's 48 battery storage facilities or 48 batteries throughout. And so we're very, very excited about that. We've talked to them about possibly doing a groundbreaking in October, and we'll make sure to include Jerry in the chamber when we get to that point. And then that should have been my last slide. Just again, we're very, very interested in helping support the state of California, San Diego, Tijuana regional economic development, but also, in decarbonizing and improving the air quality emissions due to, idling trucks. We're here, we're owned and operated by the governments, and we're here to help finance however we can. So thank you again for the opportunity to present. I'll turn it back to Ernesto.
Thank you, Director Hereford. Great information as well. And thank you both, Bill and Director Hereford, for your insight and the information you shared. We're now going to take questions from the audience. Please submit your questions through the Q&A box. You should have it there on your Zoom dashboard. And we actually do have a first question. This one is coming from the Otay Chamber of Commerce, which has I believe heavy representation of trucking companies. So this one's going to be, I believe, Bill, kind of a question more geared towards the CARB rules. So this is the question. I read about a January 1st, 2024 deadline, after which drayage trucks may be added to CARB's drayage reporting system, but it does not seem viable from the industry's perspective. This would prevent diesel trucks from entering maritime ports, being extremely detrimental to California businesses and economy. Is there any way the agency can consider an extension to register a new drayage truck at a maritime port until it is actually viable to purchase a zero emissions truck? Bill.
We do have a public process going on right now around the drayage truck piece of the Advanced Clean Fleets rule, and would encourage you to be an active part of that, which I'm sure you already are. So a comment I would make is that there is quite a large number of trucks in the registry compared to the number of trucks actually visiting the port. And 2024 is a ways out, where there is opportunity to register trucks into that, to enter trucks into the registry between now and then. So we do think this is something that there is some forewarning on, and also some capacity in the industry, just in the number of trucks that are registered right now to meet that need going forward as the zero emission trucks become available and get delivered in numbers into this sector.
Thank you, Bill. And just a reminder for everyone, any follow-up questions, please. We are seeing now questions pop up in the chat and the Q&A function. So thank you, everyone. I will be following up, going on to the next question. Next question is, I believe, for NADBank. So Director Hereford. This question is coming from Karen Igareda from CBX, I believe. And it's, have any renewable energy projects or emerging projects been impacted by Mexico's energy policy and/or since the implementation of USMCA?
We've seen a slowdown in projects in terms of renewable projects on the Mexican side. And I think that that's just due to, foreign direct investment and investors, waiting to see the opportune time as to how those projects can advance. And then I saw a second question pop up on financing the charging stations. Ernesto, I'll take that one as well. Yes, we can finance EV charging stations on both sides of the border, and we're also starting to have conversations with some of those developers that want to put those in. In Arizona, they're actually going through their border master plan, and they're actually building out a spot at the port of entry for charging stations as well. So I think that's something that California will also be considering as they move through their border master plan process.
Okay. Thank you, Director Hereford. See, I believe as of right now, these are all the questions we're seeing.
There's a couple of questions here in the chat. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, there's one more that just came up from Alejandra Meritaran from the Otay Mesa Chamber of Commerce. Is CARB reconsidering the plan to have the private sector take the responsibility for ensuring zero-emission fueling stations exist in trade communities? So, Bill, that would be for you.
Infrastructure is a really, where this is, it's just really a critical piece of making the zero emissions transformation viable. And so, we're working on that at the state level, with the utilities, with the Energy Commission, with the Public Utilities Commission, to get these like the SB 350 funds out there and actually get them into the field. But it's very exciting to see the private investment that is going on with zero emission truck stops and some of the innovative models we're seeing with the sort of truck as a service kind of thing, where they're bundling the depot and the charging and the truck all in a package sort of thing. So we're seeing a lot of innovation there. And then, it's encouraging to see the truck OEMs themselves stepping forward. Daimler and a consortium put forth $650 million worth of investment they've announced in heavy duty public fast charging. And they've announced that's East Coast and California, and then they're doing some work in Texas as well. So we're very encouraged by the types of things that are coming forward. But this is a really critical area, and we're trying to participate in the conversation and really understand what those business models will be and where that charging could go, and how to get that development accelerated, and what are the barriers in utility rate structure and policy and whatnot to siting these types of charging facilities where they're needed. So that's a really important topic.
Thank you, Bill. Staying on the CARB topic, this question is not in the chat, so I'll get to it, and then we can get back to the chat questions that everyone can see. But I do have a question for Bill. Thank you for sharing an overview of planned investment toward a zero-emission future. Does the $600 million for trucks, buses, off-road, or $100 million for emerging opportunities include the implementation of charging stations at ports of entry? So charging stations are a big topic, obviously. Bill.
I think so the numbers that are of CARB projects tend to be on the vehicle side, and the infrastructure investments tend to come through our California Energy Commission, and we try to work very closely there. So I'm a little more familiar with the vehicle investments than that we are running the public process on, but there are definitely investments being made in both vehicles and infrastructure there. The Energize with two I's is a CEC program that's trying to pair up infrastructure grants with our vehicle purchase vouchers through our HFIT program. And so we're trying to make that more of a seamless one-stop shop for fleets that are working on electrifying. But yeah, that's an ongoing effort and that we welcome input on.
Thank you, Bill. We're going to move over to the chat questions, which are coming numerously. So next one is from Leila Naderi from the partnership. Can't quite see the name. Okay, so from Leila. Thanks for the presentation regarding the extreme drought and negative impacts of wildfires in California. Are there any environmental projects and investments addressing these issues? I think this is more for NABBank, Director Herford.
Yeah, so, as the financier, we're not the project sponsors. So people bring projects to us and say, here's the idea that we have. We're looking at some water reuse projects. We're looking at water recycling. We're looking at desalinization. In terms of the drought, we've done one desal plant in Ensenada that's up and running. We have a second one, San Quintin, that's still going through the planning process. But in terms of fire resilient and wildfire resilient, we haven't seen any of those types of projects come through the bank as of this point in time.
Thank you, Director. Next question, would technical assistance and financing be available for meeting facilities on the border that reduce cross-border traffic and related emissions? That's maybe for CARB, possibly.
I'm not sure exactly, I might need a little more detail to understand, which programs might be applicable to which things, but, we're clearly aware that fleets are operating across the borders, and, that we're interested in helping folks understand as best we do the technologies and avail themselves of our incentive programs. And to the extent that fleets are based on both sides, we're interested in hearing how we can help contribute to that.
Ernesto, if I could also answer that question, yes. Any project that reduces air emissions qualifies as a beneficial environmental project for us. So in order for the bank to finance a project, there are three things that have to take place. We have to have a documented environmental benefit. We have to have the financial feasibility and the technical feasibility. And if all three of those check out, then it's a project that we can then take to the board for consideration. And so, yes, any sort of project that reduces air emissions at ports of entry would qualify, as long as we could document it.
Thank you, Bill. And by the way, that question came from Carl Nettleton. Thank you, Carl. Next question, Alejandra Meriteran from the Otay Mesa Chamber. And question is, 4,000 trucks cross through Otay Mesa every day, and there's no plan for zero-emission fueling stations in Otay Mesa for Class 8 trucks other than 4 charging lanes at a truck stop. Will the state take the lead in areas where the private sector is not moving forward, especially since there are no plans to have zero-emission charging stations in Baja?
We've had a lot of cross-border programs in the past where we've worked with our colleagues. I'm sure we're happy to continue working with them. I don't know that we currently have programs, directly funding stations in Mexico with California tax dollars, but I can check and see what we have in that area that might be helpful that direction.
We certainly could finance it. And so, as you talked about, and Bill mentioned earlier, kind of leveraging some of the grants, that's actually what we're looking at trying to do. With the federal dollars coming down to the states, we understand that, there's probably going to be a funding gap on some of this EV charging infrastructure. And so we would like to leverage whatever grants come in with a loan from the bank. And again, we can finance it on either side of the border. So I think it's important to highlight that in the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Bill. Next question from Neil Moore. How will CARB enforce the emissions and zero emission vehicle standards for facilities registered out of state or in Mexico?
I think there's a variety of ways that can happen. For one thing, like the heavy duty inspection maintenance program, it's you're operating in California, you need to have a certificate that vehicle is in compliance. So that's something that if they're hitting a way station, if they're pulled over or whatnot, that's if the folks they're doing business with are audited, that's just something that needs to be presented, sort of thing. So there's a number of ways that can go about, but yeah, it is more of a challenge for things that aren't necessarily registered in California.
Thank you, Bill. Would you have a thank you from Leila for her earlier question on the clarification? And then Carl comment here. The question is for NADBank on the cross-border meeting facilities. And so Director Hereford did I think respond to that. So thank you, Carl, for that clarification. And Alejandra, see the fueling stations on the San Diego side. Yeah, I think good point. Your question was about the U.S. side of the border. We did mention that Baja has no plans for that, but maybe for Director Hereford as a follow-up, but on the U.S. side of the border, are we seeing beyond the 4 charging stations? So right now there are no additional projects, right? But you are willing to finance additional projects from the private sector on the California side in Otay Mesa. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, we haven't talked to the developers, but yes, by all means, we're available to look at the project, look at the financing, and obviously there would be an environmental benefit by using EVs and with a reduction in trucks or passenger cars. So yes, we would be happy to take a look at that. And it's one of the reasons why we reached out to the chamber was one, to let people know we're here. Again, people think of us as Tijuana River solely focused, and it's a huge problem. And yes, we're focused on that. But there's the other side of the house here at the bank where we can also give loans to the private sector. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to reach out. And again, thank you to Kenya and Jimena for allowing us to participate today.
Great. Thank you, Director. We've got a question from Leila Naderi at Alliant University. And question is, how could universities partner with your organizations to collaborate and support projects and initiatives in this space? I think that's
Bill, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. And we have a long history of working with various academic and NGO kind of groups. There's things like awareness and education kinds of things. We have worked with our community college groups to make sure that the workforce development sorts of things. We issue research projects to academic partners as well. There's just a whole range of ways you could be involved, whether it's in the sort of outreach or understanding the nature of these trucks and vehicles and business models, or the actual proposing and administering of projects.
Yeah, likewise, the bank has a very robust outreach plan. We do work with universities, NGOs, nonprofits, anybody under the sun, in several different categories. Some are TA, some are through the Border 2025 EPA program that we administer. We work very closely there throughout that process, and would look forward to sitting down and having a conversation to see how we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Director. Another question here. This one, I believe, did not come up on the chat. So, it's more for Director Hereford for NADBank. In the San Diego Baja region, it's home to academic institutions with cross-border collaboration agreements that contribute to developing the skills that the binational workforce needs to support companies. What role can our regional academic institutions play in the electric vehicle technology and infrastructure industry?
Oh, absolutely. I think that, through research and development is a huge part of this. And that's what San Diego, Tijuana is known for, is the technological advances that come out of the region. So I think that the universities, I think, technology, I think biomedicine, I think, biohealth, and then obviously just the shared manufacturing between the cluster in Tijuana and cross-border shipping. So I think that the universities play a huge role in the development of the workforce, but I also think from the technological side through the research in order to develop the next cutting edge, technology that will help either EVs, extend, battery life, all these types of things that I keep reading about in the media is really where I think that universities can play a huge role in the decarbonization of the region.
Thank you, Director Hereford. Bill, any additional comments on that topic? I know it wasn't for you, but
yeah, we're very supportive of our academic institutions, and it's a technology is what allows us to do what we're doing in a more sustainable way. So we're happy to support that and be part of the conversation as to where the opportunities are and what we can contribute or support.
Great, thank you, Bill. All right, I believe those are all of our questions, quite a few actually. So we can see I think clear evidence of the level of interest in the topics. For sure. So unless there's any other questions, I think we can move to closing the meeting. Bill or Director Jesse, any final comments before we close that you'd like to make? Optional.
Just again, appreciate the opportunity by the chamber. We're a member of the chamber, so thank you for the opportunity to present. And we look forward to meeting both public and private sector folks that have projects and interested projects that will help decarbonize the region. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you once again, Bill and Jesse, for your great insight, great information shared. I think it was very valuable, and clearly from the level of questioning that we got, there was a lot of interest and very much appreciated. We're getting several thank you messages on the chat as well. So again, thank you so much. We'll follow up with you for updates and additional information. And of course, we appreciate your ongoing partnership, and any follow-up questions, I'm sure we can get a hold of you through our chamber team. So these forums are, of course, great venues to share information and stay connected. So if we see a need in the future, we can always hopefully have you back, and we would love to continue this conversation. As a final announcement, please save the date for our binational delegation to Mexico City from October 23rd to October 26th. where we will meet with key federal officials to discuss international commerce, foreign investment opportunities, and cultivate political and business relationships. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jimena. Thank you, Kenya, and everyone else for participating, and for Kenya and Jimena for organizing this great forum. Jimena or Kenya, unless there's anything else, I think we're ready to wrap up.
Yes, thank you.